All right, guys. Our next guest's amazing war with Jose Aldo was officially voted ESPN's and Bloody Elbows 2014 Fight of the Year. He is now fighting Ricardo Lamas on April 4th, UFC Fight Night 63. Ched Money Mendes, welcome back to Submission Radio.
Yes, guys, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's always great to have you back on the show. Now, we haven't heard a whole lot from you since you fight against Jose Aldo. Tell the fans, what has Chad Mendes been up to and how's 2015 treating you so far?
Man, I just took a little bit of time off. I was doing a lot of hunting, fishing, hanging out with the family. But just, getting back into training now and getting ready for the fight with Llamas. So it was a nice time to, kind of get out of the gym. I feel like I trained so much for that fight. Basically went through two camps in a row, with the injury and everything. So, it felt great to be able to step out of the gym for a little bit and get a little bit of vacation. So.
Absolutely. And, just touching on that fight, we were rewatching that fight the other day. It was a fantastic fight. And, you were pumped and smiling throughout most of the fight with Aldo and afterwards as well. Was that the most fun you've ever had during a fight, Chad, in recent times, your fight with Jose Aldo?
Yeah, man, it was a, pretty cool experience. Like I said, I felt like I was so prepared, so ready for that fight. And, it was a lot of fun to get in there and actually get it done. So, didn't get the W, but all in all, I feel like I, learned so much about myself as a fighter and, proved a lot to myself and I think the world as well. And, it just felt good, man. It's something I'm going to remember for the rest of my life, that's for sure.
It's interesting you say that. Well, you say you learned a lot of things about yourself. What are some of those things? What did you learn?
I mean, although I think in my opinion is pound for pound best fighter, so getting in there and fighting a guy that that caliber, getting in there and, I felt like I did more damage and, kind of beat him up a little bit. It felt good to, find that out, I guess you can say. I've been a wrestler my whole life and, been working a lot on my stand-up. I'm the only guy to ever drop him, stand-up wise. And just, like I said, I feel like it kind of helped my confidence a lot as far as, my all-around game. So, all in all, it was good to just kind of get in there and let loose.
Absolutely. And it's great to see, how much fun you had during the fight. Obviously, with this fight with Ricardo Lamas, your goal is to get another crack at Jose Aldo. If you did have another matchup with him, what do you think would be one thing that you would have done differently?
Honestly, I feel like there's a couple things that, change in this fight and I win the fight. I think, not getting dropped in the first round, and the two punches after the bell, messed me up pretty good. And so pretty much every other hit that I would take to the head after that would pretty much rock me. And so I think, taking that kind of stuff away, the fight's a little bit different. Probably mix up a little more wrestling as well. But, like I said, all in all, I think a couple things just, change. Small things change in that fight, and I win.
Yeah. Now, going to that fight, a lot of people picked you to beat Jose. I'm just wondering, what was that like, and did that put any extra pressure on you?
No, not at all. I mean, this is my job. This is what we, train for. This is what we do. So, as far as fans and people, wanting me to win or expecting me to win, that's just all part of the job. So, it definitely doesn't add any extra pressure. If anything, it just kind of helps. I love having the fans back me up and, truly believe in me. And, I think it kind of helps the confidence. So, it definitely doesn't hurt.
Now, one thing that was apparent in the fight was Aldo's height. You've said in past interviews you're not the biggest of featherweights. Chad, have you ever or would you ever consider dropping down to bantamweight in the future?
Possibly, yeah. I definitely don't cut much weight. My weight cutting, is pretty on point. I've been doing it for a long time, so I kind of, know what my body can and can't do just through wrestling. But I could definitely make 35. But right now TJ's a champ, and he's got his reign, so definitely not stepping in and gonna try to get in there and fight TJ or anything like that. So we'll see down the line, though. I got a few years left to get in here and keep fighting. So hopefully my body's willing. Would like to keep fighting for another 5 or 6 years plus. So yeah, we got some time, hopefully.
So just to clarify, Chad, because I'm interested in that, is also, if TJ Dillashaw and Uriah Faber weren't in the bantamweight division, do you think, it would be safe to assume that you'd be more likely to go into it sooner, or could have tried out bantamweight already, but it's possibly because that your teammates are in the division that you've sort of stayed out of it thus far?
Yeah, I mean, as far as that goes, I mean, I think it's the teammates. We have guys at Team Alpha Male that are at the top of so many different weight classes, and we kind of all have our places, and we know that, and, like I said, TJ's the champ at 35. My only loss is to Jose Aldo. And, like I said, I think I changed a couple things and I beat him. I become the champ at 45. So, I don't think anything's broken. I'm not trying to fix anything as far as moving around, but, I love where I'm at. 45 is my home right now. And, I feel very comfortable with the weight cut. I feel good with how my body is, and, being able to train throughout a camp and not have to worry about killing myself by starving and dehydrating the entire time. So, I can just focus so much more on getting better every camp. And I think in my opinion, that's more important than just trying to be a little bit bigger than an opponent. And I've always kind of had a strength advantage anyway. So it's, I think that's what kind of helps. But, yeah, I mean, right now, 45 is definitely where I'm at.
Yeah, of course. And if you went to bantamweight, of course, you wouldn't really have room for Tim Tams in the diet, so that'd be a big shame. Speaking of TJ Dillashaw, he was on our show just recently, and he said that he'd love to fight Jose Aldo. TJ also pointed out a few advantages he would have over Aldo. Having fought Aldo twice, and given that you train regularly with TJ, how do you think TJ stacks up against Aldo, and what do you think his chances would be against the featherweight champ?
Yeah, I mean, I think TJ's style, just like, we saw the fight with Burrell, I think his style matches up great for Aldo and Burrell. I mean, for TJ anyway. I think TJ would have to put on a little bit of size. Aldo's quite a bit bigger than he is. And so I think that would be something he'd have to focus on. But, if he could pack on the size and keep the cardio gas tank, obviously with the same technique, I think it would be a rough night for Aldo. So, that's definitely a fight that I'm sure a lot of people would love to see, myself included. But yeah, I think he would do great.
Chad, let's talk about your upcoming fight with Ricardo Lamas. This is something we're very excited about. You called Ricardo out a while ago. Why do you think it took such a long time for the fight to be made official?
Yeah, so I called him out right after his win. That was a big win for him against Dennis Bermudez. And so I think ultimately it's, me, Llamas, Frankie, now Conor, and then Aldo. Those are the core top guys. And, coming off a win like that, it just felt like it would make sense for a guy like him and me to fight. So I called him out. Ultimately I have no idea why it took so long. Maybe, the UFC was just trying to figure out which cards people were going to be on and ultimately figure out who was going to fight who. But, yeah, we got it done. This is the fight that I wanted. I don't have anything negative to say about Ricardo. I think he's a solid fighter. Seems like a cool enough dude. This is a fight that, it's just one more fight to get me that much closer to the title shot again. So, like I said, I feel like he's deserving. He's in the top, and I got to beat a guy like this to get right back in there. So, it's that time.
And I think, it's an exciting fight, much like we saw Gustafsson and Johnson this past weekend. It's one of those fights where two elite guys at the top, there may be a title shot coming after this. You guys are somewhat similar in the sense that you're both wrestlers with dangerous striking. What do you think you do better than Ricardo?
I think ultimately I'm just more athletic. My wrestling is just the pedigree is higher than his. I think he does a great job of mixing it up with his striking and his wrestling. And there's a few things that I'm going to focus on with a guy like Ricardo. Obviously not going to talk about it now, but, I think ultimately our styles match up for a pretty exciting fight. I'm a heavy hitter. I like to get in there and bang, but can mix it up with the wrestling as well, just like he can. So, when you get two guys like that, it could be a very close fight. And, sometimes those are the most exciting ones. So I'm excited for it.
Absolutely, Chad. Without giving away any of your game plan, Ricardo's so talented. What's one area that you think he's most dangerous in, going into this fight in your mind?
Ultimately, I think his most dangerous spot is on top, and I don't get taken down very much in any of my fights. So, I think that's, I think that's a bad matchup for him as far as, his strongest point is probably one of my strongest defenses. So, I think ultimately that benefits me a lot more. And, his striking's decent. I don't see anything great. He seems like he's got some power in his jab hand. Obviously, you guys saw what he did with Bermudez, but, I feel like I have the speed advantage and the power advantage. So, all in all, I feel like anywhere this fight is, I feel like I'm pretty much the better fighter. So, I think this is a great matchup. This is one of the reasons why I called him out, obviously. He's a big name. This is, a huge stepping stone to get right back into that title.
Ricardo made a hilarious video recently mocking Conor McGregor. I'm guessing you saw it by your reaction. He says he wants to get his personality out there more. First of all, what did you think of the video? And are you worried at all that we're going to see a Chad Mendes parody soon from Ricardo?
Nah, I mean, that I thought that shit was hilarious. I actually retweeted it and posted it out there just because it was so damn funny.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't have anything negative to say about Ricardo. I mean, I thought that was hilarious. That's they spent a lot of time on that, and I thought it was pretty cool. But I mean, I don't think I'm going to see anything about me. I mean, it is what it is, whether if he wants to do it or not. But no, I thought that was funny.
Now, we compared your matchup, you and Ricardo, to Johnson and Gustafsson because, really it is the elite fighting the elite in the division. If you do beat Ricardo, how long do you think till you get another title shot? Obviously, your fight with Aldo was the best fight of 2014. How many more fights do you think after Ricardo do you need to fight till you get that title shot again?
I mean, I was talking about this the other day. I mean, ultimately, like I said, it's, me, Ricardo, we got Frankie, now Conor, and Aldo. It just wouldn't, if I beat Ricardo, I could possibly see maybe Frankie if he's not already fighting for the title. But, I mean, ultimately, I don't see anybody else other than Conor, whether he wins or loses this fight, that I would fight to, that would make sense. I would either be taking a step back in competition or be fighting for the title soon. So I could see this fight, if I win this fight, maybe one other one possibly, and then back to the title. Could even possibly see winning this fight in spectacular fashion and holding off and fighting for the title next. So, I mean, ultimately that's up to the UFC, but in my mind, there's only a couple things that really make sense.
Now, you mentioned Conor McGregor, and he's obviously the next man to get the crack at Jose Aldo. When you were on our show last time, this is a while ago, you mentioned that you weren't exactly his biggest fan, that he was a lot of talk. This is around the time that the Cole Miller fight was supposed to happen. We have to ask, what's your opinion of the guy now, and has it changed at all?
People ask this all the time. This is a guy that's made, a huge splash in the division. Ultimately, he's not my favorite guy, but, when it comes down to it, he's doing everything he needs to do. I mean, he's, beaten every person that the UFC's put in front of him. It's not his fault. He's not facing any wrestlers or any, guys that are really going to test him. He's, stepping in there every single time and doing what he's saying. So, the guy talks a big talk, but he's backing it up thus far. I'd really like to see him get in there and actually fight, one of us, wrestlers or guys that are in the top 3 before he gets the title shot. But, it is what it is. The guy's got a huge following. UFC, is going to make a lot of money off this title shot, and that's what it ultimately comes down to. So, as much as I want to hate the guy, this is a business. He's doing what he needs to do, and he's making money. So, that's basically bottom line.
That's very true, Chad. He is converting a lot of people with each fight. Just wondering, were you impressed at all with his performance against Dennis Seaver?
I mean, I feel like that was the same Conor we've seen every single time. I mean, I haven't seen any major improvements or anything, but, in my opinion, I don't think Seaver was the test that he needed to get in there and fight for the title next. You know, in my opinion, Seaver, you know, is top 15. You know, I don't think he's top 10 or top 5 by any means, but, you know, it is what it is. Like I said, the UFC is doing this. They need him fighting for that title. So that's what's next.
And the last question before we get off, Conor, you know, you've obviously been in there with Jose Aldo twice. Do you think he'll be able to dethrone the champ?
No, I don't think so. I mean, this is the thing. A lot of people forget that Aldo, you know, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but also, I mean, we've seen him blast double guys. He can wrestle, you know, he can take people down. He's athletic enough to where he can adapt and do those types of things. You get a guy like Conor where, you know, I think Aldo's going to be faster than he is. We saw Conor get tripped a few times by Seaver's, you know, short little leg kicks. You know, with Aldo's speed and power, he's going to chop those legs down. And if for whatever reason he's getting tagged up at all on the feet, you know, I could see him blast doubling, taking this dude down, and just staying on top of him. You know, we've seen him do it in other fights with other elite strikers. So, you know, I think that's always a possibility. I don't think Conor's going to beat Aldo, no.
Do you think, Chad, do you think mentally this is going to be a tough test for Aldo? I mean, thus far, he looks like he's just laughing in Conor's face. But, you know, you were in Brazil with him in a stare down where he pushed you. Do you think it's sort of easier to get in Aldo's head going into a matchup?
Yeah, you know, before all that stuff with me and Aldo, you've never seen Aldo react or act like that at all. So, you know, I think that was kind of the first time anyone's really got into his head. And you got to see what happened, but you know, I feel like that was kind of a warm-up for him with this season. This is going to be a completely different level as far as mind games go. You know, we'll see how he acts to it. You know, I think Aldo, I mean, he's a champion. He's got the champion mentality. He's been a champion for a long time. So I highly doubt that he's going to let something like that get in his head and really affect how he performs. But you know, ultimately, I don't really know the guy, so I don't know. But you know, instincts go with, you know, he's the champ for a reason, and he's, you know, not going to let mind games control how his performance is. So.
Now, Chad, before we finish up the interview, we're just going to do something fun with you. It's called the Submission Reader Tap Out Round. I'm sure you remember a bunch of fun questions, and I answer with the first thing that comes to your mind. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right, Ben. What is the best pizza place in Sacramento?
Dude, I'm not even a big pizza guy, honestly. You guys are silly for that. Sorry.
Oh, man.
I don't eat a lot of pizza.
Oh, no. A lot of Chad Mendes fans right now are turning off the radio, Chad, but that's all right. It's okay. It's okay.
Sorry, guys.
Because we're about to find out another level of Chad Mendes. Because, Chad, what was the first music album that you've ever bought?
Garth Brooks from a yard sale down the road.
There you go. Jordan or Kobe?
Jordan.
Hardest meal to stay away from during training?
Sushi.
Now, how much money has Martin Kampman won off you in poker thus far?
I don't play poker. He hasn't stolen any of my money.
Yeah, he'll get you in there. He'll slyly get you playing. Oh yeah.
He's tried a little bit already. Not quite yet.
Using his Jedi mind tricks. Now, you had the fight of 2014, but what was the movie of the year in 2014 for Chad Mendes?
What was the what? Sorry, phone cut out.
The movie of the year.
Movie of the year? Of 2014? Frozen.
Oh.
I would have gone with Pitch Perfect myself, but all right.
Chad, mustache, goatee, or beard?
Mustache for sure.
See, I think you'd look good with a goatee. Now, what's the Chad Mendes signature meal in the kitchen? You invite Submission Radio over to your house. What's the signature meal you're cooking up?
I eat a lot of wild game, so my favorite is ground elk spaghetti. So you put the ground meat in the sauce, so meat sauce, but ground elk is unbelievable.
Oh, nice. We'll be over next week. Chad, has Chad Mendes ever Googled himself, and what's the weirdest thing you've ever found?
Oh yeah, just because people have told me there's been some weird shit on there, but I think it was my nationality. They said, what did they say I was? I think at one time they had said I was African American, and I can't remember what the other one was. It was just something completely not true.
Well,
something out of the
It seems a team alpha male affliction because TJ Dillashaw's in a lot of articles now known as the Viper, and he's never been the Viper. And then apparently you've been African American. So what's going on here?
Someone is jumping on.
I don't know who's running all these things, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, someone's jumping on all your Wikipedia pages and just changing all the information to stuff people up in interviews. Now, Chad, what's your most prized possession?
My challenger, I'd say. She's my baby.
You challenger the car.
Challenger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And finally, Chad, how do you plan on beating Ricardo Lamas? What's the official prediction?
KO, baby.
Well, there you go. You can't go past that, guys. You can follow Chad on Twitter at Chad Mendes. And when he's not hunting, he's getting ready for another huge fight. Chad, we're excited for this one. And best of luck in your training. We can't wait to see the fight.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thanks for letting me come on.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.